Hello and welcome. It's been over a month of the government's demonetization decision, and while the government has been highlighting all the benefits it will bring for the country, the opposition has been harping on the bad and the ugly, what it calls really the ugly. But clearly, the people have supported the move because they understand what it really means for them in the long run. What will it really do in terms of easing a lot of pains that the country has faced for decades altogether? Let's try and understand that. We have former Minister of State for Finance as well as current Minister of State for Civil Aviation with us, Jayant Sinha. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Could you just tell us first up that all these benefits that are supposed to come in the long run from demonetization, will it completely obliterate the inconvenience, the pain? Will that become a distant memory?
Very much so, because what you have to understand is that at most, and this is what economic analysts are saying right now, at most this quarter that is going to end on December 31st will see a bit of a slowdown in the GDP growth rate. But the next quarter, which is Q4 of the financial year, will hardly see any impact. So all we are going to have, and this is what RBI also was saying yesterday, are some transient effects. And those transient effects will soon be washed away by much faster growth in the economy. And the long-term impact, the long-term compounded impact of higher growth rates is very, very substantial. And the reason why we will have much higher growth rates going forward and a much better economy, the Honorable Finance Minister has called it a new normal for the Indian economy. And this is a new normal because, number one, cash to GDP will come down. Right now we have 12% or so cash to GDP, which is a real outlier when you compare India to other countries. Even when you compare India to large developing countries like Brazil or China or Indonesia, our cash to GDP is much higher, which really means we have a large parallel black economy. That will come down. When that comes down, not only will we see tax to GDP going up, we'll see a much better formal financial system, and in addition to that, the government will probably through tax collection see much higher revenues, which will enable us to reinvest for the benefit of the people. All of these are very powerful long-term impacts, and they're going to compound every year. And that compounded long-term impact of these economic benefits is going to be far more than the short-term transient impact of one quarter and a little bit the next quarter. So I think if you look at it from an economic perspective, and that, by the way, I will tell you, is in some ways perhaps not the most important aspect of this. Okay. The other aspects of it are equally, if not more important. But purely on an economic perspective, the long-term benefits far outweigh the short-term pain that we are going through right now.
So by when can we exactly see the benefits kicking in?
I would expect from the next quarter onwards, all of these positive effects will start to show up. As I said, cash to GDP will certainly go down because we're not going to put as much cash in circulation as we had previously. So cash to GDP, the black economy, counterfeiting, terrorism, drug smuggling, all of these factors will immediately be compressed.
So it will be like bye-bye 2016, a very happy 2017.
Very happy 2017 coming up. At the same time, the tax to GDP will come up because our tax collections are certainly going to go up. Our banks are going to benefit starting now because they got all these deposits that have come in, and those deposits have meant that they've got a lot more of what are called low-cost CASA, current account, savings account. And these low-cost CASAs improve the profitability and the financial health of our banks. These effects are going to start showing up from January onwards immediately. So I think it's something that that is right around the corner for us right now.
Right. The banks have already started lowering rates, even when RBI held the rates at the same level as the last review.
And that's because the banks are now flush with liquidity.
Yes.
All the deposits that have come into the banks have meant that the banks have plenty of money and they can lower rates.
But growth projections have also been pared down by 0.5%. It's a far cry from what the former Prime Minister said, that he said 2%. But there is still an impact which cannot be denied.
Yeah, it's, as a renowned economist, it is quite surprising that Dr. Manmohan Singh would say that GDP would decline by 2%. That is, I think, an erroneous statement. The fact is, the most that any economic observer is saying is going to happen is a 2% decline in the GDP growth rate and that also for 1 quarter, not for the year. If you look at what RBI is saying and most other economic analysts are saying, they're expecting a reduction of GDP growth rate for this entire fiscal year of no more than 0.5 to 1%. So if we were thinking that the economy would grow at 7.5%, the range that people are thinking of is going to be now between 6.5 to 7% in terms of overall GDP growth rate. GDP for India never declines. That has not happened I can't think of when it actually happened, but GDP itself doesn't decline. GDP growth rate can decline. And as I said, once we establish the new normal and we have a far more robust, much better economy with much more digital transactions, the pickup in growth that will happen and the sustaining of that growth is going to be so powerful in the long run. The compounded value of that is far more than, as I said, the transient impact of 1 quarter.
Yesterday, a good thing that the Economic Affairs Secretary said was that as the impact was being assessed, especially on rural economy, that has not borne out because 7 to 8% increase in Rabi sowing has been seen. Do you think that's an effective argument to all those who are saying that economic activity has been depressed because of demonetization?
I think that's right. I think that the long-term patterns have not changed at all, and obviously sowing the Rabi crop is in fact a long-term pattern because people are looking 3-6 months ahead. And so that has not changed at all because everybody, and I think this is the important part of what the Honorable Prime Minister said, and that the people have fully accepted, which is that this is something that's going to have some short-term impact, but very quickly things are going to get better. And so people are viewing it in that way. They're thinking longer term, and their behavior, for example, in the Rabi sowing is showing that. There have been any number of weddings that were planned during this Lagan का जो माहौल जो है अभी लगन का जो समय चल रहा है कोई ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि कोई शादी नहीं हुई सब शादियां तो हुई because people are thinking longer term. They recognize that these effects are going to go away. So we will have to see. Maybe there will be some sectors. And
people do have alternatives to cash already.
No, absolutely. Obviously, there's the whole digital side. There's credit, udhar chal raha economy.
We'll talk about that at length.
And so those are ways of coping. But nonetheless, I think it will be very interesting to see structurally whether there are any industries, maybe jewelry, maybe some people are saying real estate, but I don't buy that because I see interest rates coming down.
And they're saying informal sector, trade, travel, hotels,
I think you can make an
restaurants.
equally good argument for the positive as opposed to the negative. So I'm not buying that right now. I'm not buying those arguments.
So what is the opposition doing then? Is it not really reading the people's pulse when it is holding up Parliament? The entire winter session so far, there's barely any time left now. If
It's
you consider
deeply tragic. It's deeply tragic because we have been sent to Parliament to do the people's business. And there's so much business that's pending. There are any number of important bills. There's a supplementary for the budget. Obviously, there's GST.
That's being held to ransom. That would have been another great kicker for the economy.
Absolutely. And a good, solid debate on demonetization because we think the people of India deserve a good debate on demonetization because I think once the facts are in front of people and, the way I'm talking to you, that's the way it would be presented. Short-term transient impact versus massive long-term benefit. And I think people of India recognize that, which is why they're supporting it in such a wholehearted way. And once these arguments are presented fully and comprehensively in the most important deliberative body of our country,
the government
has
also taken a fairly forthright and combative stand as far as the opposition's attitude is concerned, particularly in the last couple of days in the House. Has the government reconciled to the fact that the winter session is going to be a washout?
We have taken a very dignified and responsible stance, and the stance is we welcome debate, we welcome discussion. Let the facts be presented to the people. Let the logic and the arguments be presented to people.
But it's not happening.
And the people of India can decide who is doing the right thing for the country and who's doing the wrong thing for the country. I think the people have already decided. They've moved on. They recognize what the opposition is doing has no substance to it. That there's not anything that makes a difference to their lives. Of course, as a Lok Sabha MP, I am always in my constituency, I'm talking to people, and everybody's excited about what's happening.
But again, my question, has the government reconciled to the fact that the winter session, all those bills that are pending, GST in particular?
No, we are a responsible government. We are trying all the time to ensure a good debate and to ensure that these important bills actually do get passed.
Wonderful. You did say that the people are moving on from whatever the impact of the downside of demonetization has been. We'll talk about that after a very short break. Please stay with Candid Conversation.
पढ़ देती हूँ।
बहू चश्मा ही नहीं ला कर देती, आँखें बन जाती है और इन महाशय को ही नहीं, इनके जरूरी कागजों को भी संभालती है। पर अब वक्त है कि पूरा परिवार उसके लिए कुछ करे, इसलिए दूसरी या तीसरी तिमाही में एक बार उसे 9 तारीख को सरकारी अस्पताल जरूर ले जाएंगे, जहाँ सरकारी के संग प्राइवेट डॉक्टर्स भी आते हैं।
प्रधानमंत्री सुरक्षित मातृत्व अभियान के तहत हर महीने की 9 तारीख को सभी सरकारी अस्पतालों में गर्भवती महिलाओं की विशेष सेहत जांच मुफ्त की जाती है, ताकि अगर खतरे के लक्षण हो तो उनका सही समय पर इलाज कर सके।
9 तारीख को होने वाली माँ का ख्याल सबसे पहले।
आज देश काले धन के खिलाफ एक जंग लड़ रहा है। डीमोनेटाइजेशन यानी पुराने 1000 और 500 के नोटों पर पाबंदी, जो कि काला धन, भ्रष्टाचार और आतंकवाद के खिलाफ एक जंग है। लेकिन कुछ स्वार्थी लोग अपने काले धन को बदलने के लिए भोले भाले लोगों के बैंक अकाउंट्स का गलत इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं। नए बेनामी कानून के अंतर्गत ऐसे लेन देन करने वालों को 1 से 7 वर्ष की सश्रम कैद व ऐसी गैर कानूनी राशि को जब्त भी किया जा सकता है। याद रहे, आयकर विभाग इस तरह की तमाम गतिविधियों पर नजर रखे हुए है। इस अपराध में भागीदार न बने। एक सच्चे भारतीय की तरह काले धन के खिलाफ इस जंग में आगे आएं, देश को मजबूत बनाएं। आयकर विभाग द्वारा जनहित में जारी।
मुझे मिला, मुझे मिला,
मुझे भी मिला
और मुझे भी।
अल्पसंख्यक कार्य मंत्रालय की इस योजना में छोटे कारोबारियों के लिए है टर्म लोन यानी मियादी कर्ज, जिसमें 10 लाख तक की मदद का प्रावधान है। एनजीओ से जुड़ी अल्पसंख्यक महिलाओं के लिए है माइक्रो फाइनेंस स्कीम यानी लघु वित्त योजना, जिसमें है 50,000 तक का कर्ज। इसके अलावा माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटी के स्टूडेंट्स के लिए है एजुकेशन लोन स्कीम, जिसमें है प्रोफेशनल और टेक्निकल एजुकेशन के लिए बहुत ही कम ब्याज दरों पर लोन। तो आप भी NMDFC की कर्ज स्कीम से लाभ उठाएं।
हुनर को हौसला।
अरे वाह राधा, नई यूनिफॉर्म।
आज मेरी बिटिया को स्कूल से छात्रवृत्ति जो मिली है।
पर इतनी आसानी से कैसे मिल गई?
बिटिया के स्कूल में आधार कैंप लगा था, वहाँ इसका आधार बनवाया, जिससे छात्रवृत्ति के लिए अप्लाई करना और भी आसान हो गया। आज ही अपने बच्चों के आधार पंजीकरण हेतु अपने नजदीकी आधार केंद्र, स्कूल या आंगनबाड़ी से संपर्क करें।
मेरे उज्जवल भविष्य की उड़ान, मेरा आधार, मेरी पहचान।
डॉक्टर नेहा, टीम लंच 9th को है।
सॉरी सर, बट 9 को कहीं और कमिटमेंट है।
सर, नेहा मैम ने एक बार कमिटमेंट कर दी ना, तो वो खुद की भी नहीं सुनती हैं?
कैसी कमिटमेंट? कमिटमेंट प्रेग्नेंट वुमेन के लिए। प्रधानमंत्री सुरक्षित मातृत्व अभियान ज्वाइन किया है मैंने। सरकारी अस्पताल जाकर स्पेशल ANC सर्विस मुफ्त देती हूँ। आखिर हम प्राइवेट डॉक्टर्स का भी तो कुछ फर्ज बनता है।
लंच कैंसिल। आई प्लेज फॉर 9।
हर 9 तारीख को होने वाली माँ का ख्याल सबसे पहले।
छोड़ो कल की बातें, कल की बात पुरानी। नगद रहित लेन देन से लिखे नए भारत की कहानी। सब हिंदुस्तानी चुन रहे आसानी। भुगतान करे, खरीदारी करे या टिकट बुक कराए, ऐसे सारे काम डेबिट कार्ड और मोबाइल बैंकिंग से हो जाए। नगद रहित फायदों की कीमत सबने है पहचानी। सब हिंदुस्तानी।
चलिए हम सब नगद रहित लेन देन की दिशा में आगे बढ़ें और आज ही नगद रहित बैंक सेवाओं का इस्तेमाल शुरू करें। अपना समय बचाएं और जीवन आसान बनाएं।
भारतीय बैंक संघ तथा वित्तीय सेवाएं विभाग, वित्त मंत्रालय द्वारा जनहित में जारी।
रिक्शा में जाने के लिए या दफ्तर से आने के लिए, पढ़ने लिखने के लिए या सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट से जीने के लिए, कपड़े खरीदने के लिए या फसल बेचने के लिए, बिजली के बिल के लिए या भिंडी पनीर के लिए, कोई भी भुगतान बिना नकद के करना बिल्कुल मुमकिन है। इन 5 तरीकों से स्मार्टफोन में या तो UPI ऐप डाउनलोड करो या रख लो ई-वॉलेट। बिना इंटरनेट वाला साधारण फोन हो तो डायल करो *99#। कुछ नहीं तो डेबिट कार्ड जेब में रख लो यार, या तो आधार कार्ड से भी कर लो तुरंत भुगतान। इतना करते ही बन जाएगा आपका मोबाइल या कार्ड, आपका बैंक भी, बटुआ भी।
मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, आज से ही संकल्प लीजिए कि आप स्वयं कैशलेस सोसाइटी के लिए खुद एक हिस्सा बनेंगे। देश को भ्रष्टाचार मुक्त करने का अभियान, लोगों को कठिनाइयों समस्याओं से मुक्त करने का अभियान, इसका नेतृत्व करना है आपको।
बिल्कुल मुमकिन है।
अरे सुबह सुबह इतनी जल्दी मचा रखी है? हाँ,
बाय पापा।
आप में से कौन कौन विदेश में हायर स्टडीज के लिए लोन लेना चाहता है?
मैडम, इंटरेस्ट कितना होगा?
जो भी अल्पसंख्यक स्टूडेंट विदेश में पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट डिप्लोमा, मास्टर्स, एमफिल, पीएचडी जैसी हायर स्टडीज के लिए लोन लेना चाहता है, उसके इंटरेस्ट पर सरकार सब्सिडी दे रही है। यानी आपके एजुकेशन लोन का इंटरेस्ट अब सरकार चुकाएगी।
मदद हमारी, मंजिल आपकी।
फिर तो मैंने उसकी धुलाई की ना, सारी इकड़ी निकाल दी। मैंने अपना उस्तरा निकाला, कर दिया, कहला भाई 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 प्लीज मेरी रैगिंग मत करो, मेरी रैगिंग मत करो। राहुल, क्या राहुल? सुसाइड कर लिया और उसने, है?
रैगिंग आपकी जिंदगी के वो हसीन पल छीन सकता है जो आपने और आपके पेरेंट्स ने आपके लिए सोचा है। आपकी जिंदगी और करियर आपके हाथ में है। स्टॉप रैगिंग।
Welcome back to Candid Conversation. We're speaking to Minister of State for Civil Aviation, Jayant Sinha, about, well, the move that has, of course, been the talk of the country, even in the world, for the last more than 1 month. That's demonetization. Now, you did say before we took that break that the people are moving on from whatever the impact has been that has affected their functioning, day-to-day functioning, and that is largely because of moving on to digital ways of transacting.
No, I think they've moved on because they have confidence in the government.
Okay.
If the Honorable Prime Minister has said that we will be able to get past all of this in terms of the inconvenience of not having enough cash in circulation and so on by the end of December, people believe him because he has a track record of delivering. The government has a track record of delivering. So people have accepted that. They know that there is now, as far as the 2,000 rupee note is concerned, enough cash in circulation. Obviously, people would like the 500 rupee note because it makes things much more convenient. That note is now coming in. That note is being printed and put in circulation. So people are recognizing that the end is in sight. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And once they see that, then they move beyond it very quickly.
And there is still a case for rationing cash in terms of how it's dispensed, withdrawn from accounts, because there's this huge way demonetization is being used, rather misused by these elements who are trying to park their ill-gotten money.
Well, obviously what we are going to see in India is that people are going to try and exploit the system, which is why we had so much black money in the first instance, right? People try and exploit the system. But we are very vigilant. We recognize that this is a mammoth logistical task. We have some 600,000 or so cash distribution points. We have to take in somewhere in the region of 14-15 lakh crores of currency. We have to replace that maybe with 10 or 12 lakh crores of cash in circulation. That's a very mammoth logistical task across a vast country like ours. And we have to make sure that there is sufficient cash everywhere, and if there are some occasional very high needs which are legitimate, we have to ensure that there's sufficient cash there as well. So all of this has to be managed. It's an extraordinarily major undertaking for the government, which is being tackled in a mission mode. And the very good news, I would say, is that despite this unprecedented challenge, logistical challenge of making this happen, by and large it's happened smoothly and peacefully. That is a testimony to the fantastic work being done by the banks, by the RBI and all the government machinery.
Yeah, it's been tweaked a lot as well, and people have criticized that, saying that it was not well planned, it was mismanaged. Monumental mismanagement is the kind of phraseology that's been used.
Well, there's a rhetoric and then there's reality. So we have to separate the rhetoric and the reality.
But this was necessary. I mean, you had to react to the way people reacted to the move, and all of it could not have been anticipated.
Now let me talk to you.
How it's been difficult to...
Let me talk to you about what is the longer term impact aside from the economics. I already said if you look at the economics, it's much too early to tell what the short term economic impact is going to be. The long term benefits are pretty obvious. Everybody is recognizing that less cash to GDP, more tax to GDP, better health for our banks, more tax collection, all those things are quite straightforward, will happen. But what is the short term economic damage? It's very difficult to figure that out, but clearly the long term will outweigh the short term. I think pretty much everyone agrees to that. But, and this is the point I want to make, which is an extremely important point, is that we have transformed the country. And when you transform the country in this very dramatic way, obviously there are going to be some short-term inconveniences. But the transformation that we've undertaken, which is not just the transformation of the economy. There is a new normal that's being established in the economy, as I've just said. But the psychology of the people has changed. And it's changed, because people are recognizing that if you have black money and you're not paying your taxes, there will be consequences. That they will be brought to justice if they are outside the law. That's very important. That psychology changing, I think, is profoundly important for India if we want to build a modern 21st century country. Number one. Number two, important for India but also important globally. People recognize that India now is a strong state. We are not a soft state where you can flout the laws of this country with impunity. We've demonstrated that if there are things that are wrong with the country, we are prepared to take the tough decisions and to make them happen. That is a very powerful signal that we have sent to the world. And along with ensuring that we've had this dramatic transformation of people's behavior, so that they don't accumulate black money, they move to digital, that behavioral transformation is very important, non-economic but very important behavioral transformation. And in addition, signaling to the entire world, strong state.
And those who are still thinking that they can still get away, there will be a rude shock for them as well, because
Honorable Prime Minister has already said, that's right, and Honorable Prime Minister has said that this is a long-term transformation. We've taken a whole host of steps so far, whether it is the 2 lakh limitation in terms of cash transaction with PAN, the Domestic Black Money Act, the Foreign Black Money Act, the SIT on black money, whether it's the work we're doing on automatic exchange of information. All these things that we're doing, right, are against corruption and black money. And of course we've taken this dramatic step for demonetization, but this is part of a long-term transformation process. It's going to continue, and people, as I said, recognize we are a strong state, we are going to do what is necessary. So these are profoundly important changes that have happened to India. We're really transforming India, which is what the Honorable Prime Minister has been saying all along, and frankly that is what the people have sent us to Delhi for, is to transform India, because people were sick of the old normal, which was full of corruption and black money.
And everybody's pulling in one direction. It's not just the government, it's at the individual level. You as an MP in Hazaribagh are doing, you and others are doing that in terms of pushing for e-payments as well, right at the grassroots level. Do you think what might have taken, if this move had not come in, years altogether, will happen now in months, moving towards digital economy?
And that is the transformation. And the people are supporting this enthusiastically, because they know that they were suffering at the hands of a few people that were accumulating black money and were taking advantage of the system. And they're very happy because they know that with the Honorable Prime Minister, they have a decisive and bold leader who will take action against the people who are flouting the laws of the land and who are not giving the people of this country what is their just due.
And decisions have been taken to accelerate this process as well. Today, it's been said that there will be no service tax on transactions, e-transactions less than 2,000 rupees. The district administration has been incentivized by Niti Aayog. Mari's been already given 5 lakh for each district. Do you think this will give that impetus that is required to, this transformation from cash to digital that will happen very quickly?
There are many facets to this transformation. As I said, we've compressed cash to GDP, we've compressed the black economy, we've attacked counterfeiting, we've attacked terrorism. All these things are there. In addition, and perhaps equally important, is the transition to digital, which we are pushing every which way. Lots of people that are involved with the digital economy are saying this is a massive leapfrog that we're doing, that we will be able to go to a much better, more convenient, less friction economy, which means that the speed of which we can do things improves dramatically. And of course there are a whole host of things we're doing. That service tax is one thing you just said. We waived transaction charges. There's massive advertising going on, and everybody is talking about it. And so when everybody talks about it, everybody says, my goodness, maybe I should be doing this too. That's the behavioral change I'm talking about.
It completely hinges to a large extent on the number of mobile phones, over 1 billion mobile phones in our country. About
No, that's not true. That's not true. We already have about 75 crore debit cards out there.
Okay.
These 75 to 80 crore debit cards make it possible for you to go to any merchant, put in your debit card, do your transaction, and just electronically take out money from your bank account and make the payment. So you don't even need a smartphone. Already virtually everybody, 75-80 crore people have a debit card so that they can do electronic
But you always
transactions.
need connectivity, and in some areas there are connectivity issues as well.
Well, there are new innovations coming out. Some of the mobile wallet people are enabling you to transfer money just through a phone number, and then with USSD, by the way, which is another thing that has been developed, you can actually transfer money with a mobile phone even if it's not a smartphone. So there are many ways in which you can get around this. But again, we are not going to a cashless economy. We are going to a less cash economy. We cannot continue with a situation where cash to GDP is at 12% and the black economy is somewhere between 15 to 30%. We've got to compress that. We've got to bring cash to GDP down to 7 or 8%. We've got to compress the size of the black economy. We've got to bring all of these transactions into the tax net so that we get sufficient taxes to pay for the services that people want.
Do you feel, with all the positives that you're saying will kick in the new year, there will be leeway for the finance minister as well in the budget which will come in February to bring some more cheer to the common man?
Well, the finance minister, of course, is, I'm sure, thinking of all the various ways in which we can further boost the economy, and I'm sure that many interesting proposals are being considered.
Because the experts have already started talking about how income tax could be lowered and even corporate tax. Do you feel that there will be leeway to go in that direction?
The Honorable Finance Minister is going to take all of that in consideration.
Let's hope that all good things flow in the new year. Thanks a lot for joining us today and talking about this move that the government has made, but will change the face of the country in the coming years. Thank you.